So if you played the previous betas, you know that the unstable bomber perk is absolutely insane. There was a pistol that was kind of completely based around it. It was really solid, and then it got nerfed a little bit, and it's pretty much back again in my opinion. So let's check out this entire setup. I'm going to show you kind of like a bare bones build that you can kind of take into pretty much any content and do it, flawlessly as is. And then I'll talk about some min-maxing options later down the road. So let's jump right on in. So first and foremost, the deviant that you want to use for this setup is going to be the Lone Wolf's Whisper. Biggest reason for that is the fact that it's going to increase our damage by 27% whenever it attacks a target. It's also great for those just, regular ad mobbing sections, because every time it takes down a target, it's going to clone itself and just continuously, keep up that effect for us. But again, for that bossing scenario, it's really great for the fact that we're just getting flat 27% damage added onto our weapon damage. So really, really great for those, again, big bosses. Now, the weapon we're going to be using for this setup is going to be the Jaws Legendary Pistol. The biggest reason for that is that Unstable Bomber perk. It reads every 4 hits will trigger Unstable Bomber. Essentially what that's going to do is just cause a large explosion that is going to be status elemental style damage. So just keep that in mind whenever we are doing mods later down the road. We're going to be kind of focusing into that, because that Unstable Bomber itself is considered an elemental status effect. It also reads extra crit hit counts as +1 hits after defeating an enemy, blast damage plus 30% for 12 seconds. And probably the most important perk here, Unstable Bomber can crit rate plus 25%. That is absolutely insane for the fact that typically this is not supposed to do any damage to that. It doesn't do any damage to weak spots. So again, it being able to also crit is going to be crazy, because we're not only going to have crit damage from our regular weapon, but getting Unstable Bomber crit as well is going to kind of, you'll see it later down the road with these bossing clips and everything, and how much health just kind of goes from 100 to 0. The main perk we're going to be using on this is going to be Supercharged. Triggering Unstable Bomber grants Unstable Bomber plus 4% damage for 3 seconds and can stack up to 6 times. This is obviously a really great one in general, because we're going to be constantly triggering it. I really do enjoy this, but I will say, if you want to, you also can put on Heavy Explosions. Unstable Bomber inflicts heavy attack. Really cool for just some extra damage. I haven't really noticed much about this, so if you have used this previously, please put it down in the comments down below. Let the people know which one's better, Heavy Explosions or Supercharged. And in my opinion, so far it's been Supercharged. And then the second weapon we're going to be using is the Recurve Crossbow. Biggest reason for that is that extra bullseye damage there. It's essentially just adding like a weakening effect to targets, so we're able to do more damage. But the second part about this that's really nice is the mod that we have on it, Vulnerability Amplifier. Bullseye adds vulnerability plus 8%, just giving us a little bit extra of that, debuff extra damage to a target. Now, when it comes to the armor we're going to be using for this, I currently have a 2-part set of a Lone Wolf and then a full Falcon set. First up, the big thing for the Lone Wolf that we want is that crit rate plus 5%. Obviously, the more times we can crit a target, the more that we can trigger that Unstable Bomber extra damage. Typically, though, you do want like this as a full set, in my opinion, and then probably only doing a 2-part of the Falcon. I just need to get all the blueprints from the Gotcha machine, the Witch machine. So eventually I will have that, but until then, I'm using the Falcon set because it's great for that extra crit damage throughout the second perk. And once again, the third part, whenever our stamina is over 90%, we're going to have increased crit rate and crit damage. And then on that final one, we're going to constantly just be able to keep up that stamina bar. Now, when it comes to mods, we're going to be using across our armor. It's going to be a lot of stuff going into crit rate, crit damage, and a little bit of status damage as well. So obviously on our hat here, I'm using after reloading, crit rate plus 10%. And crit damage plus 20% for 2 seconds. Obviously really great. On our mask, we're gonna be using targeted strike when hitting a marked enemies, crit rate plus 8% and crit damage for 20%. Obviously really, really great because we're constantly using that bullseye from that recurve bow. On our jacket, we are using an extra crit rate and crit damage perk, the crit damage enhancement. And obviously again, on that second attribute there, it talks about the extra elemental damage. Blast from Unstable Bomber is considered an element, so any pluses to that are a really good choice. On our legs, our pants, we're using Deadshot. I really like this with this Jaws pistol for the fact that each crit hit by a non-melee weapon grants 5% crit damage up to 45%. This is removed upon the next reload, but obviously we got like 15 bullets in our mag that we can kind of just like easily get up to anyway, so it's a really solid option. Crit amplifier, crit rate plus 5%, crit damage plus 15%, really great. And then finally on our shoes, slow and steady, which I think is like one of the most important perks to have for any like just damage in general. Plus 8% to melee weapon and status, and then we get an additional 8% whenever we're above 90% health, which is pretty much all the time. So you're just getting 16% flat there for free. Now, when it comes to our override nodes and everything we're gonna be needing here, obviously handgun enhancements are a really big one. We're mainly using a handgun, so we're gonna get the extra damage and reload 1 ammo from reserves upon defeating an enemy, really solid. Deviation master for that extra damage whenever we have our deviant out. Agility, just so we get some damage reduction whenever we roll. Rapid aid for the extra healing. Status enhancement after hitting a weak spot, status damage is increased. So obviously getting extra of that blast. First round blast after reloading, instant damage from our unstable bomber is plus 25% for 4 seconds. Sprint for our extra movement speed and stamina cost deduction. And then an actually really solid one is master tactician. After using a tactical item, our damages increase against great ones by 25% for 15 seconds. Really solid for that bossing scenario. Now we're talking about how we can kind of min-max this a little bit better. Obviously we already talked about getting a full part of the lone wolf set is really great. But if you don't have that and you want to try a different combo, this shaman vulture top is really great. After triggering unstable bomber, which is pretty much all the time, your crit rating is increased by 35% for 3 seconds. Absolutely insane for the fact that it's going to mean, again, especially when you combo this with the lone wolf set, at least having onto that third part of it, you're going to be essentially having your unstable bomber all the time and having that high crit rate pretty much all the time as well. So again, I'm hoping to eventually get 8,000 star crumbs so I can buy this and just go, yep, this worked exactly like I thought it would. But even right now, this is really solid. And the last little thing I want to talk about is the calibration for your weapon. Obviously, calibrating everything up as is really great. But whenever you select the item itself as is, you can obviously add a new calibration to it. So currently I'm using it for the pistol. One that I'd recommend is something like a rapid shot, a rapid fire, to get a better fire rate on the weapon itself. It's really, really nice to have. I mainly am not putting this one on currently and saving it for a purple one, just because it's gonna obviously have a higher rate on it. Ideally getting a gold one. I just don't really feel like burning the stardust at this point. Also, I just want to kind of go over a couple unstable bomber pieces of gear. Obviously, we talked about that shaman one, saying that one's a must. Explosive front on this chest piece right here. It has a delay of 0.3 seconds, and then it has extra damage on top of it. Really would be solid, but I still think having the better crit rate is probably the better option. But thanks so much for watching the video, everyone. Again, give a thumbs up on the video and let me know something you're interested in seeing down below in the comments section, whether it's just, regular builds, guides, all the fun stuff and things. I would really like to just be able to make more stuff for you guys in regards to this game. Also, make sure you follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Byrdman778 and subscribing and becoming a member. Guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a great night, day, whatever it may be.